Welcome to the news session. We continue working in the news section. In this lesson, we will work on the archive page. We will divide it into two blocks, the header block and the content block. Let's start with the header block and figure it out. Here we have a category. In principle, for the post type, we set taxonomies for categories, but these categories also have icons. You see, therefore, let's come up with functionality for these icons. Let's first go to the admin panel and take a look where our taxonomies are stored. Here they are, these taxonomies. That is, we created a new taxonomy news categories. When registering the post type news. And first of all, let's add a few terms. The names of the categories themselves in WordPress are terms 1, 2, and then maybe even 3. Now our task is to make it possible to upload an icon for these terms. And only after that can we develop the block itself. At this stage, we don't have the option either when adding or even when editing. This is actually done quite simply. In WordPress, it's very easy to add additional fields. They are, of course, done through meta fields. Meta fields are added not only for posts. Meta fields in WordPress are also added for users and for terms. Taxonomies. This is nothing other than a term for a taxonomy. Here we can also add meta fields. So let's create a structure for ourselves. Let's go to our project, open the plugin intended for code. This is the core game store. We have a catalog in it, include, and let's create a new file. We'll name it newsmeta PHP, but let's not call it newsmeta because just meta I associate it with posts, meaning as if there are meta fields for posts. So if you find news, we'll rename it news term meta because these meta are specifically for terms, and let's open a PHP tag. Now, writing this manually is a task that takes at least 1 hour. Because remember, to register a meta field, you first need a piece of markup, cheap, then a hook for connection, a hook for saving, a hook for display. It's time consuming, but artificial intelligence helps us. So let's open the chat and ask it to create it. We need this. So I tell it, WordPress doesn't need PHP code to add an image upload field for a custom taxonomy with a custom post type. And the second point, I immediately ask it this taxonomy and these images, meaning you copy the links like this from the site so that it immediately writes with the necessary IDs. A very simple request, and it will generate the necessary code for us. So here's what it generated for us. Let's add this and analyze it. So, first of all, it creates a piece of HTML to add this icon on the term addition page. Then it creates a piece of HTML for the term editing page. That is, adding is here, editing is when I open right here. Let's look further into the code. Next, it creates a cubbius for saving. All of this is stored for a year under the IT news category icon. Then it loads a JS script. In fact, it's a piece of JavaScript code that when clicking our button will launch the file uploader in WordPress. And there's nothing else in this file. All right, let's add this to our file. Let's load our file. And let's look at the website. So I am on the editing page. Here is the field, here is the upload button. Pressing the upload button, we have an error. So on this type of page, something necessary for file upload is not loading. Let's check on the page for adding not a news item, but a category. Here, the same error is here. This type of error indicates that the scripts intended for the uploader in WordPress cannot be interpreted correctly. They are generally loaded into special VPN functions, QMedia. Let's check if it exists. So yes, we have it. That is, AI generated a function for us, which connects through a hook, but it connects it to the admin footer. We will change this now. We will connect it to np script im, because there is a possibility that the function generates the necessary scripts, but they are loaded, let's say, not where they are needed. This is the second point. I see our code in jQuery, which AI generated for us, and jQuery requires a library. In older versions of WordPress, jQuery is loaded absolutely everywhere in the admin panel, but since the introduction of Gutenberg, not on all pages. Now, WordPress loads jQuery, so we need to ensure that jQuery is also loaded. Therefore, everything that the artificial intelligence generated for us, we will use perfectly, but we will refine what it suggested to us. So, let's do the following. First of all, we will move this jQuery code from here to a separate jQuery file, or rather a JavaScript file. So, in our game store directory, we will create a new folder and name it assets. Inside it, we will create a JS directory. And in this JS, we will create news.term.meta.js, since it is specifically for this topic that we need the JS code, naming it thematically. I am moving the file here with copy-paste. This is standard JS, or rather jQuery code. On clicking a specific element, it loads. This is the modal window that allows you to upload a file. You will see it now. Therefore, you can use it for any projects. So, we created a separate file. Therefore, let's edit our function as well. So, we will attach this hook to the admin footer. It is admin and with clips. This will load the JS within the admin area, but on all pages, meaning, I even missed this point now. It was loading this code for all pages, but I need it to be shown only on these two pages, meaning here, and on the editing page. Therefore, using PHP, let's try to check so that dispatches, this is very convenient to do. There are taxonomies with a certain slug and for edit. Yes, it is there too. So we can check this get variable. If the get variable with this key exists, then technically we are on this page. First, let's check if this variable exists so that PHP doesn't return an error. I'm talking about the global variable get and by the taxonomy key. And the second check, but I look and I understand perfectly. Therefore, I will use the second check, verifying the assignment to the news category. So this check, and I select this function, which will load everything needed for the loader. And besides that, using VPN and script, I will load this file of mine. Let me copy its name. Assign it the same ID. News term. Meta. Next, we have it. I will take a constant. That's why I created them. Next, the directory. Assets. JS catalog. And Meta is wonderfully further importantly. Here, set the following parameters as a dependency on jQuery. In this case, even if jQuery is not loaded by default on the page, when the press wants to load this file, it will be ready. For its operation, Jack is required and will also load jQuery. Therefore, we pass jQuery in this way as well. And in principle, okay, everything is sufficient. We updated this one, which loads the file. Let's check now. Go to the site, refresh the page, and click on upload. Nothing works. Let's check if our file is loading. News. No taxonomies. Our file is not loading. Apparently, we made a mistake here. With this VPN cookie script game store, we have the constant path, correct? Check, let's see, taxon. Here it is, what? The print. We first check for the taxon variable, if it exists, and then its value. And for this reason, these two functions of ours were not loading. Let's check again. Refresh. Test it. Now it's wonderful. You see the modal window I was talking about is loading. Let's check the same. On this type of pages, it also loads perfectly. Next, we need an icon. Let's choose one icon and export it. For good quality, we choose SVG, but we can specify any format. And export the second icon as well. And the third icon. Our icons are colorful, and regardless of the color scheme, we only need one type of icons. That is, there is no need to register two fields separately here. And let's upload. So, we created one, let's save it. The page reloaded, the value was saved. That's great. Let's add it for the others as well. So, this one was problematic. It was saved. Entirely, the button, not the icon, I didn't pay attention to this. This can be deleted again. I'm not sure if the icon matches the name. I didn't check that right now, but the next thing that interests me is we kind of made an option. It seems to work, but it's completely inconvenient and unattractive. First of all, to see the icon, you need to go inside. Next, I go in, I see some kind of link. So let's analyze our sub. So the first hook adds an image, upload field. Here, when we are on the upload, we cannot see this image because we still need to upload it. The second hook allows editing. That is when we are already here. And here, in principle, when we want to edit it, it is uploaded and we can already see it. So let's go somewhere. Here. In the first position, we will perform a check. That is, it outputs this variable, icon. In it, we have a link stored. So this value is available here. Thus, we can perform a check. If it exists, then we will output a certain EMG tag with this icon. There, that's already better, right? You can already see it on the editing page. Next, of course, it's worth adding some styles. You can add them directly to the input. Like this, so the button doesn't overlap. Like this, in principle, everything is quite clear here for the editing page. Everything can be read. Let's take a look here. Here, it's unclear whether it's uploaded or not. I suggest editing this table. In WordPress, there are special cookies that help us with this. And We will use one of the cookies. First, we need to create this column. Let's use autofill again. Very convenient, by the way. So we create a new column, assign it an ID, and specify the name of this column for that ID. Next, we connect via add filter. Our function, that's it. Let's check if this column is being created. Here it is. The wonderful column is being created. Next, we need a function to display some value there. So let's see what autofill suggests here. Let's confirm. So autofill does a lot of work for us. Next, we need a filter. Again, autofill does the work for us. Let's refresh now the page, and we get icons and in the admin panel. It looks very beautiful, and it's like magic. We literally implemented it in fractions of a second with the help of AI. If you haven't added columns to your projects before, this code might seem like magic to you. But if you work a lot with WordPress, in principle, you know that these are regular hooks that we constantly use from project to project, and that's why Copilot fills them in very quickly and understands them perfectly. For those who haven't used it, I'll provide a bit of additional commentary to make the lesson complete. So this filter, yes, it has a special call at the stage when it forms this table. That is, we connect to this stage using this key, and this filter requests some data. It requests the content, what will be displayed there. It requests the column name, the IDs of the column, and specifically by whom. So why does it generate it? In the previous step, we created a column. Yes, we registered an ID for it. Then it looks here and checks this one, meaning it first looks at the columns. If it's not the ID data, then we simply return the content that is by default in the table. But if it is indeed the ID, then we ignore this and proceed. Here we create some content. Yes, essentially we are creating our HTML from scratch. In this body, we placed a link into a variable. We checked if the link is there. Then we create this variable with content using this HTML code and return it back using rhythm, and the user will then see this content. And so in a loop, this is how this cube copylad works. It seems like it generates magic, but essentially these lines of code are used in every WordPress site hundreds of times. That's why it's so easy. Everything here is auto-filled. In principle, with this, we have implemented the functionality for working with icons and loading them into meta fields for taxonomies. Well, more precisely, for terms from custom taxonomies. We did this only for this specific taxonomy, meaning if I go to the categories for the post, there's nothing there, you see. So we specifically attached it to our personal post type. With this, we will end this lesson and see you in the next lesson, where we will continue with the direct output of the block itself. We now have all the necessary information for it.